My name is Tuomo Kauttu. I am a partner with Aliant. I have practiced business law over 20 years in Helsinki, Finland. I am speaking about cross-border transactions doing business in Finland. The Finnish workforce is experienced and exceptionally well educated. Finns know global business and are used to working in multicultural environment across different time zones. Over 90% of Finns under 30 years old speak English. In addition to Finnish language, Swedish is Finland's second official language. Many Finns speak also German, Russian, or French. Education has made Finland into world-class knowledge-based society. The network of higher education institutions is exceptionally dense and visually comprehensive by international comparison. Finland is among the largest countries in Europe. With its 5.5 million people, however, Finland is not a highly populated country. Its population is concentrated in the southern part of the country and in a few cities. Finns like to call their forests green gold because they are its most important natural resource, and the forest industry has been a major contributor to well-being in Finland. Around 75% of its area is covered by forests, and nearly 10% is covered by lakes and rivers. Finns for sure love recycling. Finnish recycling infrastructure is especially good when it comes to returnable bottles and cans through the nationwide deposit system. The return rate for refillable glass bottles is almost 100%. Innovation thrives in Finland, and strong innovation skills generate business results. Finnish society is highly supportive of entrepreneurship, with flourishing Silicon Valley-inspired business culture. Wired lists Finland is as one of the best countries in the world for startups, and the annual Slush startup event in Helsinki is among the largest in the world. Moreover, about 3% of all employed people in Finland are working in research and development functions, this being one of the highest in the world. Finland has an outstanding infrastructure, whether it's ICT networks, electricity supply, or air, sea, rail, and road traffic. It just works in Finland. Practical Finns show a strong commitment to functional infrastructure and engineering. Finland was a forerunner in rolling out 3G networks and has recently launched the most advanced 5G test network. Unfortunately, the same applies to community and building planning. Once you look at Finnish cities, villages, and buildings, you can easily note the lack of design. The reason for this is that in most cases, engineers are doing the design work instead of architects. In Finland, practical view, even in design, is far more respected than design itself. We also have some surprising natural advantages, such as stable rock-based ground formation and cool weather, that are ideal elements for data centers. Our country is easy to approach from the air as well from the sea. As the fastest road between Europe and Asia, Helsinki Airport is an increasingly popular gateway also to the Far East. Helsinki-Vantaa Airport is recognized as one of the world's best international airports by IATA and ASQ surveys. Our society has become an ideal business environment where everything works, from basic infrastructure to high ethical standards. Investments in education and an open, equal society have made Finns independent and creative problem solvers who can boost productivity with exciting new ideas. Regardless of their position in the company, many people are on a first-name basis. Finnish companies generally have a flat organizational structure and informal work relationships are commonplace. A healthy sense of humor is also an asset. And if you have the opportunity to take a sauna, try it out. Your Finnish hosts will be very impressed. Beyond sauna experience and other unique basic facts, there are some further aspects you have to consider when doing business in Finland. Regarding deal structure and contract issues, a Finnish-related transaction creates similar concerns as those of cross-border transactions globally. After finding an optimal structure, it is a good idea, among other things, to conduct a pre-deal examination and organize a pre-deal process, and of course, prepare sophisticated written contracts in professional manner. Corporate tax in Finland is 20%. Finland offers several incentives for both Finnish and foreign companies, including European Union incentives for companies operating in certain geographical areas of Finland, and Finnish incentive programs for technology companies and small to mid-sized companies. Standard rate of value-added tax is 24%, and it applies to goods and services. However, two reduced rates of 40% and 10% are applied to certain products and services. Personal income tax in Finland is progressive, the lowest rate being approximately 8% and the highest rate being 55 to 56%. Several sources of income are taxed as personal income, including labor, pensions, and personal income portion of entrepreneur income. Capital gain and capital income tax in Finland is mildly progressive, tax rate being from 30 to 34%. What is notable is that capital income is not only the capital gain, but also other income generated through possession of wealth. So this includes gains from selling an asset, rental income, dividends, certain interest income, and the share of profits of an investment fund. Capital income also includes the capital income portion of business and entrepreneur income. This is a real benefit for investors because in many cases, taxation on capital income rate is lower than would be on personal income rate. As the formation of business enterprise, it is notable that Finnish law does not recognize company form that combines certain elements of corporation to certain elements of partnerships. I mean, such as a limited liability company in USA or GmbH in Germany, for instance. Finnish law does recognize partnerships, both general partnership and limited partnership. Such form of business entities used to be popular, but nowadays partnerships exist extremely seldom. Reason for this is Finnish corporate law and its recent expansion to cover all kinds of companies. Currently, almost all business enterprises are governed by same law. This Finnish corporate law is based on the idea that just one law regulates everything. It may be a masterpiece of engineering design. As I said earlier, Finland is extremely engineer-concentrated country. However, if you look at the law as a lawyer, you understand that such idea is not realistic. As we all know, corporation is a legal entity that exists as a legal person, separate and distinct from its owners, meaning in case of corporation, shareholders. Moreover, in order to compare corporate laws in different jurisdictions, we are supposed to speak about entities or business enterprises which combine the elements of limited liability, everlasting existence, centralized management, and free transferability of interests. Once determining a corporation in accordance with said principles, the Finnish corporation that is created by and exists under Finnish corporate law is something special and controversial. The same corporate law governs all types of companies from one-person micro company to multinational public corporation and everything between. The same corporate law applies to business enterprises at all stages of their growth, from startups and emerging growth companies to public corporations. Same corporate structure focuses on all forms of business ownership, including family-owned businesses and both private and public companies. The good thing is that in Finland, choice of entity is relatively easy because in practical terms, there's only one entity form to be used, the corporation. Secondly, even the smallest companies and their owners may get the benefit of isolation and limited liability, at least in theory. The problem is that in corporate form, even the smallest business enterprise must adopt corporate structure of centralized management. Having said that, however, small business can elect corporate law subsections which provide some flexibility for small enterprises. But however, the structure is still a corporate structure and not a partnership structure or a structure that would be practical for small companies. Also, the idea of owning shares instead of direct ownership is a little strain in micro-sized company. Furthermore, how can you imagine the idea of free transferability of shares in small companies? There are also some other exceptional aspects in the Finnish corporate law. For instance, definition of purpose of the corporation that is basically theoretical issue and should not be written in corporate law. This clause has not yet caused serious problems, but nevertheless it may confuse shareholders' meetings and decision-making proceedings. However, our corporate law is mostly good and modern law, and major part of the law is reasonable regulation. Just a couple of examples. In many countries, corporations are required to have minimum amount of capital paid. Finland, however, has no such requirement. In Finland, a corporation has the power to create and issue shares, all in a single class or divided into two or more classes. Corporation may issue convertible bonds and shares, which are more marketable and which permit the corporation to generate funds with lower dividends or interest rates. Next, I want to tell you one client story. A few years ago, I represented a US-based global company in acquisition transaction. In this transaction, the US company was buying a Finnish technology company in energy field. This deal was structured as a stock acquisition. Risk analysis and patience were the key elements in this case. One of the challenges in this transaction was lack of organizing the pre-deal process on the target and seller's side. The real challenge was related to exit plan, how to finalize exit of investors in connection with acquisition and closing. There was venture capital involved in the target company, and there was an exit plan in connection to finalize the transaction. Two of the venture capital investors were small private investors. One of the venture capital investors was a large government-supported fund with its unique structure and organization policy and rules. As a result of this, regarding exit, the fund proposed and finally insisted exceptional conditions. Such conditions were not relevant as terms of the transaction between the parties or necessary to accomplish the exit. And what happened? On US buyers' side, we needed patience in understanding the exit plan of the Finnish fund and why it was so important for the fund. On the way to understand this, we first had to realize what is relevant and what is irrelevant. With relevant issues, you may be able to argue rationally and you may find a solution. With issues that are not relevant, instead, you must recognize what is harmful and what is harmless. Secondly, it was necessary that the US buyer realized that the Finnish fund is proceeding in accordance with its own policy, disregarding whether the issue is relevant or not in deal making. Once this was realized and understood, we were able to continue on basis that buyer can accept such exit plan to the extent that buyer will not suffer any losses and that buyer's risks will not increase. Accordingly, sellers and investors would not gain anything except that conditions of the fund policy were met. Thus, we were able to find a solution and close the deal. In conclusion, I wish to summarize this presentation with following tips. You may first think that Finland is an isolated island, difficult to travel to, at least by car or train. My advice is just look at the airlines, especially Finnair, and you realize that Finland is easy to approach. As the fastest road between Europe and Asia, Helsinki Airport is in an increasingly popular gateway, and not only gateway, but also final destination to stay and do business. You may have heard stories about simple Finns who live in forests and whose only business is forestry engineering. My advice is look at the facts and you learn that Finland is much more. Among other things, Finland has generated Nokia, Angry Birds and Slush. The Finnish workforce is experienced and exceptionally well educated. Finns know global business and are used to working in multicultural environment across different time zones. Finnish taxation may be heavy on personal income, and our value-added tax is extremely high. My advice is, on the contrary, Finnish corporate taxation is reasonable, and our capital income tax is relatively low in international comparison. This is not only because of the tax rate, but especially because it includes many kinds of incomes derived from capital, and not only capital gain as in many other countries. While our tax system is not in favor of consumers, workers, and small entrepreneurs, it is indeed favorable to investors and corporations. Therefore, regarding taxation, Finland is a good place for foreign investors to invest and for foreign companies to run business. Our corporate law may look a bit funny to some extent. My advice is, despite of engineer kind of thinking behind the law, it has been working quite well. While we all know that most of the universal elements of corporation, for instance, free transferability of shares and centralized management, do not apply in same manner to one-person micro company and multinational public corporation, such structure of Finnish corporate law is mostly just a matter of formalities and not a serious legal problem. In many respects, our corporate law is a good and modern law that provides real benefits when doing business. Finally, parties must understand that each company and organization has its own bylaws, policy, and other rules. In some cases, such ruling can be even more important to one party than relevant terms and conditions of the transaction. While it's extremely important to prepare a sophisticated agreement containing relevant terms and conditions, you cannot totally ignore irrelevant proceedings by other parties, whatever the reason may be. Thank you for attending this webinar. It was my pleasure to speak to you. Please feel free to contact me with any concern when planning to do business in Finland.